Hello nerds, welcome to Out of the Box Games. I'm Brian. Today we're going to look at the Superdrop 2023. Absolute Annihilation. It's an in-your-face drop that is Wizards of the Coast's most political product yet. The product synopsis reads like War of the Worlds.
Attention citizens, the turf can be found only in unwavering allegiance to the party. The party will protect you. The party will keep you safe. The party will prevail.
The flavor text of these cards reads like a manifesto, and everything is in caps, so you know it's serious. The artwork is heavily symbolic to the point of surrealism. With just red, white, and black, we get a sense of violence, doom, and urgency. The stark contrast supports a sense of opposing forces. The style also uses a lot of lines. It kind of reminds me of medieval woodcuttings. Many of the lines contradict each other, which even further creates a sense of hostility and chaos and unbalance. Visually off-putting yet appealing at the same time, it is very interesting. The first card is Oppression, a good card that is actually in need of a reprint. It's a black enchantment for 3. I love cards that do something straightforward and simple yet powerful, and Oppression does just that. This card goes great with things like Turgid, God of Fright, allowing you to steal your opponent's stuff, which is something every pod loves. Only downside is that Oppression is very specific in its use, limiting it to very few decks. If you don't dig the art, you might enjoy the Enchanted Tales version that is just now releasing with Wilds of Eldraine, which personally I find much more appealing. Just look at that big fat commie rat. Then we have Abrade. Not much to say about this. It's a red 2-drop instant that gives 3 damage to target creature, or you destroy an artifact. A useful card, but there's already plenty of reprints of it, and it's worth a whole 10 cents. Next card is a red enchantment called Mass Hysteria. Just like Oppression, this card only saw 1 printing, so this is also a welcome inclusion. It also has a much broader use than Oppression, as this card can give all your creatures haste for just 1 red mana. This card begs to be in a Gruul deck, allowing you to smack away with your biggest dumb green creatures. And it's worth about $10. Last, we have another instant called Terminate. For a black and a red, you destroy a target creature, and it cannot be regenerated. Regenerate isn't very common to see anymore, and exile is becoming almost mandatory. So this card is a dud. It's also been reprinted about 1 million times. In spite of that, it manages to be worth 40 cents. Wow. We get a couple useful enchantments with some very unusual artwork, but the value's not here. Why the hell are these filler cards still being included with these products? I understand Wizards doesn't want to tank their secondary market, but the main point of Secret Layers is to offer desirable and therefore valuable reprints. I love this artwork. Damn, it's good. Now on VHS looks amazing. After seeing Shark Typhoon, I was really hoping they'd revisit that concept again, and sure enough, it's here. I was a 90s kid, so this stuff takes me right back to the old video store days. Anyway, let's see if the cards justify the art. First card is Rewind. Such a fitting name given the theme, and I'm assuming that's probably why it's here. Plus it's cheap at about 15 cents, so you know Wizards was like, hell yeah. Rewind lets you counter a spell and untap up to 4 lands, allowing you to potentially cast this for free. It's a fun counter spell and it's useful, and now it looks incredible, but it's still just a 14-cent card. Normally I feel like it's almost a waste to have an amazing art on an instant or sorcery since you only really see it for a short time. But I love the thought of casting it in response to a big-ass spell and being like, rewind! And next is Food Chain. This is amazing. It's like Jurassic Park meets Tremors, and I f***ing love it. Hold on to your ass and buckle up, cause it's a $20 card. Can you believe it? It's a green enchantment for 3 mana. You exile a creature you control, add X mana of any one color, where X is 1 plus the exiled creature's converted mana cost. The only caveat is that you have to use that mana to cast creatures. I can imagine this card really popping off when used with creatures that can be cast from exile, with things like Squee the Immortal. The cool thing about this card is that it doesn't tap. So long as you have creatures to sack and cast, you can do so till your heart's content. Rampant Growth is hilarious. You got kids trying to kill off marijuana plants. It's definitely a 90s vibe here, and a lot of fun. Sadly, this card has been reprinted into Oblivion, and it's worth about 25 cents. It's useful, not very exciting. You see this card for a second, and it's gone. Amazing art wasted, in my opinion. Then we have the first Sliver, and this card is king. Easily the best card of all the cards in this super drop. Perfectly timed as well, since we now have our Commander Master's Sliver Precon decks to add this to. The first Sliver is from Modern Horizons, and if you're going to reprint your game, this is the type of card you would want to reprint. It's pretty straightforward. You pay one of each color for a big-ass 7/7 Sliver. It has Cascade, and it gives your other Slivers Cascade. What is Cascade? When you cast a spell with Cascade, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card whose mana value is less than the cascading spell. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then put all cards exiled that way that weren't cast on the bottom of your library in a random order. Simply put, Cascade allows you to play a shit ton of Slivers. Now, can we talk about the art on this thing? This is f***ing awesome. It's like an Aliens movie. What's really cool is that it does an excellent job at referencing the original artwork, matching the original Sliver's color and cragged out, jagged out pointedness. The people who designed this card are genius. I can't wait to get this thing and see it in person. First Sliver single-handedly earns this drop's value. For me, this is a no-brainer. It's amazing art, and the value's incredible, and I just happen to need that Sliver card. Next up is baseballing. Ever since I was about 6, I love sports cards. I know historically nerds aren't known to be triathletes, but this nerd was. So for me, this art is a home run. We have 5 classic OG Planeswalkers here, and first up at bat is a Johnny Goldmane. Goldmane reps white, costs 4, and you start with 4 loyalty counters. +1 gives you 2 life, -1 allows you to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain vigilance till end of turn. You can also pay 6 loyalty counters to put a white avatar token onto the battlefield with, this creature's power and toughness are each equal to your life total. That can make a very, very big ass token. I can't get over the creativity with these. You have the portrait on the front, beautifully done, looking kind of vintage like a hairy, fuzzed out Babe Ruth. Gotta love the glowing blue eyeball, and on the back we get his personal stats, which is a clever detail. My favorite part is the little factoid, with this one saying, he was briefly traded to the Phyrexians in 2022. Come on, if you don't find that absolutely precious, you're just being a hater. If you're keeping score, this guy's worth about $5. JACE BELEREN looks the most like a baseball player. He's repping blue and costs 3 and kicks off with 3 counters. +2 makes each player draw a card, -1 makes target player draw a card, and -10 makes target player mill 20 cards. Pretty weak with the exception of the last ability, but damn is that one expensive, costing 10 loyalty. If you trade JACE, you should get a card worth less than $1. Next we have my personal favorite walker of the bunch, LILIANA VESS. I love her factoid. It says, stole 23 bases last season, refuses to return them. Again, if you hate on this, you have no heart. Side note, I'm just going to add my own factoid real quick. LILIANA got MVP last season for being the most vicious player. Hey, this is fun. I want to make cards. LILIANA reps black. Duh. She costs 5 and starts with, you guessed it, 5 counters. +1, target player discards a card. Players love that. -2, you search your library for a card, then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. And -8, you put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Easily the most powerful and fun walker in this set, and really just a kick-ass walker in general. A ticket to see her play will set you back just $5. Next we have CHANDRA NALAAR, looking old-timey and cute. She's in a league of her own and repping red, obviously. She costs 5 but gets 6 counters, so she's throwing us a little curveball. She gets the honor of having the lamest factoid with holds league record for most bats incinerated. Let's do one better. How about, her fastball will light you up. +1 has her deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. -X, she deals X damage to a target creature. -8, CHANDRA deals 10 damage to target player or planeswalker and each creature that player or that planeswalker controller controls. Damn, that's a mouthful of words. This card is worth less than $1, so feel that burn. Finally, we have GARRUK WILDSPEAKER, looking like John Kruk from the Philadelphia Phillies. Side note, how cool would it be if he posed like Bo Jackson in that iconic photo? So this guy reps green, costs 4 mana, and you start with just 3 counters. Excellent factoid here, over 336 heads batted in, and knocked 172 out of the park. Is there relevance to those numbers, or are they just random? Let me know in the comments. So +1, we untap 2 target lands, -1, create a 3/3 green beast token, -4, creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample till end of turn. This is my second favorite of the set. Every ability is useful, making this an all-around solid card. The counters start low with this one, but the cost is well balanced for what you get. Overall, this is a really cool concept and a really creative and fun way to showcase some classic walkers. One downside is that they will not fit in anywhere. This style is so out of the MTG realms, these cards will look out of place no matter what you do. And second, the face value is not there. Even at the unfoiled price, we're still coming up short. All things considered, I'm still all in on this. Next we have Keep Partying Hard, Shred Harder Than You Previously Thought Possible. Before you say this is the dumbest Secret Lair title ever, let me explain. This is in reference to a prior heavy metal drop they did called Party Hard, Shred Harder. Okay, so now you can go ahead and say this is the dumbest or laziest title they ever used, because it is. This drop is in the style of heavy metal screamo concert posters. The original metal drop had a removal theme and in my opinion looked a lot better than this one. Don't get me wrong, these look pretty sweet, it's just not on the level of the prior ones. This one also seems much more inconsistent thematically. Basically some random cheap commander cards. And not only does this drop offer one less card than the previous one, but the overall value sucks. There's one card worth about $8, and that would be Vial Smasher the Fierce. It's a 2/3 Rakdos Goblin Berserker that says whenever you cast your first spell each turn, choose an opponent at random. Vial Smasher deals damage equal to that spell's converted mana cost to that player or a planeswalker that player controls. This card would make a fun commander and should work really well with Soulfiend Mayhem Dominus. This card is among the better looking in this drop. It's also the most legible. Jeska, Thrice Reborn, is worth a couple bucks. This is a red planeswalker that costs 3 mana. This walker is interesting because it's creative and unique. It can serve as your commander as well as a partner, which I always say, do it if you can, because 2 commanders are better than 1. The idea here is that the loyalty counters she gets are based on the amount of times you've cast your commander. I can see this card potentially being fun, but is probably more likely to be very frustrating. I like the color scheme and style of this artwork, but the actual content itself falls flat for me. Godo Bandit Warlord. This one looks pretty damn cool. I love how the artist kept it true to the original, which was a fine work in its own right. But this one really amps it up with vivid, striking detail. Their Human Barbarian is a 3/3 and costs 6 mana. But when Godo enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. And whenever Godo attacks for the first time each turn, untap it, and all samurai you control. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. I never heard of this card till now. I wouldn't use it as a commander, but it would have a place in the 99. Typical of Secret Lair cards, it's worth less than $1. Last we have Tevesh, Sazat, Doom of Fools. This one's in the $5 range. It's another planeswalker. Jesus, how many is that now? +2, we create 2 0-white black thrall tokens. +1, you may sack another creature or planeswalker. If you do, draw 2 cards, then draw another card if the sacrifice permanent was a commander. -10, we gain control of all commanders. Put all commanders from the command zone onto the battlefield under your control. Tevesh can be your commander or partner. For 5 mana, this sounds pretty strong. Making tokens, sacking them for card draw, this is very playable. As usual, Mark Riddick kills this design, but you're gonna have to memorize this card because good luck reading that font. Of course, it wouldn't be a super drop without a basic land bundle. This one brings us the art of Gary Baseman. This is a well-known artist, famous for his cute yet mischievous and devious critters. Basic lands have 0 effect on the secondary market, so Wizards will gladly rake in cash for these all day long. Players see this product for what it is, basic lands, which are typically worthless. However, sometimes we just want to bling out our best decks. Collectors are happy to embrace fancier basic lands, as they tend to be ordered far less than cards with actual face value, making them potentially valuable in the secondary market. I've been a fan of this particular artist for a long ass time, back when I used to read Juxtapoz Art magazine in the late 90s. Baseman was pretty much their poster boy in that time. These lands are super cute and fun. But does it make any sense spending $30 to $40 on these? Hell no. But you're gonna do it anyway. And now we're bugging out. We get 5 cards in this drop that feature vibrant gross out artwork that feels like a throwback to the late 80s. Eldritch Evolution is a very playable sorcery for 1 generic and 2 green. We sack a creature, then tutor out a creature from our library with a mana value equaling 2 or more than our sacrificed creature. So you want a 4-drop to score a 6-drop. I think this card's a beast, and it's going in my werewolf deck. This card usually hovers around $5. For 7 mana, we get a 7/7 insect with trample. Whenever this bug deals damage to a player, you create a token that's a copy of it. If your opponents can't exterminate this thing, it will soon turn into China and just overpopulate the battlefield. Giant Adaphage is another card worth less than $1. This is our theme for the Super Drop, less than $1. Then we have Nauseous Revival, a $5 instant that casts for 1 green and allows us to recall a creature from grave to the top of the library. Being Phyrexian mana, this allows us to pay 2 life instead of the green mana cost, which makes it a little more flexible. The artist did a bang-up job replicating the Toxic Avenger here. The value of this drop is looking like trash, however, these are playable cards and they do look amazing. Grist the Hunger Tide. Here we have another Planeswalker, this one costing 1 generic, 1 black, and 1 green. We get 3 loyalty counters to start with. For +1, we create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token, then mill a card. If an insect card was milled this way, we put a loyalty counter on Grist and repeat this process. Pay 2, you sacrifice a creature. When you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker. And if we pay 5, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Pretty gross walker, and I love this art. It looks like it should include a nasty stick of zebra gum. This card is worth a whopping $6. And finally we have Mezeric Crawl Death Priest. This is an insect shaman for 5. You get a measly 2/2, but it has flying, and whenever a player sacks another permanent, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Surprisingly, this card is worth more than Grist at around $8. So altogether, we're not hitting the minimum non-foil price. However, given the collectability factor and the bonus card included in this, we should basically break even. If you made it this far, you might as well subscribe, or at least tickle that like button. We thank you for helping the channel and for joining us. The last drop is an artist series for Kev Walker. Damn, this guy has skills. These cards look excellent, but this is yet another drop that has shit value. We've got Fey Burrow Elder. This is a tree folk druid that costs 1 generic, 1 green, and a white. This creature has Vigi, and it gets +1/1 for each color among permanents you control. If you tap Elder, for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. So basically this is a decent mana ramp. I think the creature type is going to be difficult to synergize with the decks that you'd want to use this card in, but it's a decent inclusion that's worth about $5. Carnage Tyrant is a green dinosaur for 6 mana, a 7/6 brute that cannot be countered. So suck it, Blue. Tyrant also has Trample and Hexproof. A new dinosaur set's coming fairly soon, so this might be worth snatching up before the price of these dino cards creeps. I think this is the card for this drop that best showcases Walker's talent. The action's compelling and intense, and this T-Rex is super gnarly, with tons of teeth and tons of bony spines. Tyrant's worth around $7. My second favorite card in this drop is Fleshbag Marauder. This thing's a vibe. Fleshbag casts for 2 generic and a black. You get a 3/1 zombie warrior that when played to the battlefield, makes each player sack a creature. This is a damn good 10-cent card, and it doesn't hurt that it looks freaking sick. It That Betrays is a 12 mana Eldrazi creature. It's a powerhouse 11/11 with Annihilator 2, which means the opponent being attacked by your Eldrazi creature must sack 2 permanents. And this happens before blockers are declared. Annihilator creatures basically void out the opponent's entire board state over time, which is a very cool concept. Why they chose this card, I have no idea, given that they just reprinted it for Commander Masters, and there's a good selection of other Eldrazi cards with very low print runs to choose from. What's more, as cool as this one is, I prefer the Commander Masters version anyway. Overall, these reprints all look amazing. Unfortunately, the card selections feel lackluster and underwhelming, and given the lack of face value, I can't really recommend most of them. Unless you happen to really need the majority of the cards being offered, just buy singles. I really hope they start offering emblems and tokens as bonus cards more often, especially since they seem to be reprinting a ton of Planeswalkers. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you nerds soon.